But he couldn't lie down. It just wouldn't do. And it wasn't that he sympathized with the pain of the villagers who had died. I'm captain of the Royal Select. I love and protect this country. I can't lose to bastards like you who would defile it. Gaun will protect the villagers. So my job is just to take out as many of these guys as possible. This will reduce, even just a little bit, the chance that more people meet this fate. He would protect the future of the country by protecting its people. That was all. It's precisely because you spout fantasies like that that you'll die here, gaze of Stronov, the enemy commander taunted. If you had just forsaken the people in this borderland, this wouldn't have happened. Your life is worth more than several thousand villagers' lives. Surely you must realize that. If you really loved your country, you would have left them to die. You and I will never see eye to eye. Let's do this. What do you plan to do in that state exactly? Quit your futile flailing and die quietly. I'll take pity on you and kill you painlessly. If you don't think I can do anything, then why don't you come over here and take my head? In this state, it should be pretty easy, no? So you can still talk the talk, huh? You seem to want to fight, but do you stand a chance? Gazov just stared ahead, clasping his sword in trembling hands. He focused on his hateful enemy, even as his vision seemed about to blur. He was so focused he couldn't even see the angels surrounding him, ready to attack. Such a pointless endeavor. You're just too foolish. After we kill you, we're going to kill the surviving villagers. All you've done is bought them more time to be tormented by fear. Heh heh heh. Gazov laughed in response, a grin spreading across his face. What's so funny? Gar, the foolish one is you. There's someone in that village who is stronger than me. His power is so unfathomable. I'm not sure all of you would be enough to take him. There's no way you'll be able to kill the villagers if he's protecting them. Stronger than the kingdom's most powerful warrior. You think a bluff like that will work on me? That's the height of stupidity. Gazov smiled faintly. What will Nigun look like when he meets Aints Ul Gaun? That thought would be a good souvenir for the next world. Angels, kill him. The beating of countless wings sounded over his heartless words. As Gazov was about to make a run for it, prepared to die in the process, he heard a voice right next to him. Seems about time I swap in. The scenery before Gazov changed. He was no longer on the crimson-dyed plain. He was in the corner of some kind of humble dwelling with perhaps a dirt floor. His men were scattered around him, and villagers were there, looking at him with concern. Where am I? This is a storehouse that Lord Aints put a magic barrier over. The headman. I don't seem to see Sir Gaun. No, he was here up until a moment ago, but you appeared right where he was, so it was your voice in my head. The tension he'd been desperately trying to maintain went out of his body. He'd done everything he could do. The villagers rushed over to him as he collapsed to the ground. The 6 scriptures, even the kingdom's strongest warrior couldn't beat them, but no one thought Aints Ul Gaun would lose. Chapter 5. The ruler of death won. No traces remained of the deadly battle that had just occurred on the plain. The blood dampening the grass was hidden by the setting sun. The scent of it was dispersed on a capricious wind. There were 2 figures standing there who had seemed to come out of nowhere. Captain Nigun of the slain theocracy's sunlit scripture turned to look at them, bewildered. One appeared to be a caster. He concealed his face with a strange mask and wore unrefined gauntlets. He was wrapped in an extremely expensive-looking raven-black robe, as if to prove his high status. The other was completely covered in raven-black full-plate armor. It was a magnificent suit, not one a person could find just anywhere. He guessed from looking that it was a first-class magic item. The newcomers had appeared in the place of Gazov right as Nigun and his men had cornered him. Now, Gazov and his men were gone. Must have been some kind of teleportation magic, but Nigun couldn't think what spell it might be. 2 unknown individuals using magic he'd never heard of. He couldn't be too careful in this situation. Nigun had all the angels fall back and form a wall to protect him and the others. They took a bit of distance from their new adversaries. Then, he stayed on his guard to see what they would do. The magic caster took another step forward. How do you do, people of the slain theocracy? My name is Aints Ul Gaun. Feel free to call me Aints. His voice crossed the distance on the wind. When Nigun didn't say anything, the stranger Aints continued. And behind me is Albedo. First, I'd like to make a deal with you. Might I trouble you for some time? Nigun searched his memory for the name Aints Ul Gaun, but nothing came up. It was possible it was fake. For the time being, he decided to go along with their story and get some information. Having made that decision, Nigun gestured for them to continue the conversation. Marvelous. It seems as though you're willing. Thank you. Very well, there is one thing I must say. You cannot win against me. His tone of voice contained complete certainty. He wasn't bluffing or talking crazy. Aints believed what he said from the bottom of his heart. Nigun furrowed his brow slightly. This wasn't the kind of thing one would say to slain theocracy elite. Ignorance is a pitiful thing. You'll have to pay for yours. I wonder about that. I've been watching the whole fight. The only reason I came is because I was absolutely certain I'd win. Don't you think I would have forsaken that man if I thought I couldn't beat you? He makes sense. A caster should have other ways to approach the situation. Arcaners, sorcerers, and wizards generally wore only light armor. For that reason, they had a better chance of winning if they avoided close combat and used fly to shoot fireball or some other spell from a distance. So for him to come and meet them face to face meant he must have some trick up his sleeve. How did he interpret my silence? Aints continued speaking. Now that you understand that, I have some questions. First, a little something I'm curious about. The angels with you appear to be tier 3 summons, magic flame archangels, is that right? Why are you asking if you already know? Paying no attention to Nigun's bewilderment, Aints went on. It seems like you're summoning the same monster as from Yggdrasil, but I'm curious if you call it the same name or not. Most of the monsters in Yggdrasil have names from mythology. I'm pretty sure many angel and demon names are from myths. The most common source of angel and demon names is Christianity. It feels very unnatural for there to be archangels here when you don't have Christianity. It would seem to indicate that there are others like me in this world. I have no idea what he's going on about. Annoyed, Nigun countered with a question of his own. That's enough talking to yourself for now. It's time to have you answer a question of mine. What did you do with Stronov? I teleported him into the village. What? He hadn't even been expecting a reply. Confusion showed in his voice. He realized why, you fool. If you lie, all we need to do is search the village, and it most definitely is not a lie. I just answered when you asked, although there is a reason I told the truth. To plead for your life. If you don't want to waste my time, I'll consider it. No, you misunderstand. Actually, I was listening to your conversation with Captain Gazef. You guys have a lot of gall. In reply to Nigun's ridicule, Aints' tone and vibe changed. You declared you would kill the villagers that I took the time to save. Does that strike you as a very nice thing to do? Aints' robe flapped dramatically in the wind. The same gust maintained its force and blew through Nigun and his group as well. The wind blowing over the plain happened to come from Aints' direction, that was all. Feeling the chilly wind all over his body, Nigun cleared away the thoughts that had popped up in his head. That wind didn't actually smell like death. It was just my imagination. That's some big talk, caster, and what about it? Although he was feeling a bit overwhelmed, he maintained his taunting attitude with a sneer. Nigun, the commander of one of the slain theocracy's ace special ops units, the Sunlit Scripture, was not going to be fazed by one guy. He couldn't afford to be. But I mentioned a deal before. Here's how it goes. You surrender your lives without a fuss, and this won't hurt a bit. If you refuse, the penalty for your foolishness is the pain and despair you'll die in. Aints took one step forward. It was only one step, but he looked huge now. The members of the Sunlit Scripture took a step back, overawed. From near Nigun came a handful of hoarse voices. They were scared. This presence was unbelievably overwhelming. Nigun himself had never been so overawed, so he could understand his men's fear. Even the courageous Nigun, who had made it through many a life or death situation and taken countless lives, felt like he was going to be crushed by the pressure exerted by this unknown caster Aints. It probably affected his men even more. Who is this guy? What is this caster really? What kind of face is under that mask? Ignoring Nigun's panic, Aints' ever cool-headed voice continued. Here's the reason I told you the truth. I don't care if I tell you, because you're going to die anyway. He slowly stretched out both hands and took another step forward. He looked a bit like he wanted a hug, but the sinister curve of his gauntlets gave the impression of a magical beast about to strike. A chill ran from the tips of Nigun's toes to the top of his head. He'd had this feeling before, a premonition of death. Angels, charge, don't let him get any closer. Nigun shouted orders in what turned out to be a hoarse shriek. He didn't do it to improve morale. He was just scared of Aints' ool gown coming toward him. Two flame archangels attacked at his command. Flapping their wings, they flew through the sky, slicing through the wind. They made a beeline for Aints. They thrust their swords without a hint of hesitation. Everyone thought Albedo would step out in front of him, but they couldn't believe their eyes. Not because something happened, just the opposite. They didn't do a thing. Aints took both swords without moving a muscle. He didn't use magic. He didn't evade, get shielded, or defend. He didn't do a single thing but get stabbed. Surprise turned to ridicule. His presence, how strong he was, it had all been just talk. It wasn't that Albedo hadn't tried to protect him. Surely the angels had just been too fast. Once their jig was up, these two weren't so tough. Nigun sighed in relief along with his men despite himself. Feeling ashamed for his earlier panic, he looked toward Albedo. You wretches, trying to fool me with those ridiculous bluffs then? A question formed. Why had Aints' corpse fallen to the ground? What are you doing? Pull the angels back. Shouldn't he have fallen by now? We're ordering them to pull back, but hearing his subordinate at such a loss, Nigun snapped his attention back to Aints. The angels were flapping their wings hard. They were like butterflies trying to escape a spider's web. Two of them slowly parted to either side, but they were moving unnaturally. They moved away from each other as if someone were forcing them. And then Aints, who had previously been hidden in their shadow, was clearly visible in the gap. I told you, didn't I? You can't win against me. You should take people seriously when they warn you. His quiet voice reached Nigun's ears. For a moment, Nigun couldn't believe what he was seeing. Aints was standing there perfectly fine despite swords sticking out of his chest and gut. No way. One of Nigun's men groaned, thinking what he himself was thinking. Judging from the position and angle of the swords, Aints should be fatally wounded, but it didn't even look like he was in pain. Of course, that wasn't the only surprising thing. In Aints' outstretched hands, he held the necks of the two angels. They were struggling to escape, but he wasn't letting go. This can't be, someone mumbled. Angels were summoned monsters. Their bodies were made up of the summoner's magical energy, but that didn't mean they were light. They weighed slightly more than an adult human male, plus they were wearing heavy armor. It would be no easy feat to hold that up in one hand. Maybe a muscle-bound warrior who had gone through the most rigorous training would eventually be able to do it. But the man before them was a caster. This meant that rather than muscle, he had poured his efforts into increasing his wisdom and magical energy. Even if he were using magic to increase his strength, if his base strength was low, the effect wouldn't be so great. So why would he do it? And more than that, why is he fine with two swords sticking out of him? This has to be some kind of trick. Of course, there's no way he could be unharmed with two swords stuck in him. Shouts went up in a flustered panic. As a special ops unit, they'd been to the brink of death many times and survived harsh battles, but they'd never seen anything like this. It would have been impossible even for the angels they summoned. As Nigun's and his men's confusion deepened, a calm voice reached their ears. It was the voice of someone who must not have been experiencing pain. Greater physical damage immunity, it's a passive skill. It makes me immune to damage from low-level monsters and weapons. These weapons don't have a ton of data. It can only nullify attacks from up to level 60. In other words, any level above that and it wouldn't have any defensive effect. I take damage like normal. It's all or nothing, but it seems like it's been pretty useful. Now then, these angels are in my way. Aints took the two angels he was holding and smashed them into the ground with tremendous force. He'd put so much power into it that it felt like the earth shook along with the slamming noise. The angels died, turned into countless particles of light, and disappeared. Naturally, their swords also disappeared. I thought if I could figure out the reason the angels are named the way they are, I could figure out why you can use Yggdrasil magic. But I guess I won't worry about that right now. Nigun's opponent straightened up slowly, still muttering nonsense. That nonsense was part of his mysterious horror. Nigun swallowed hard. Okay, have you had your fill of this dull child's play? I take it you refuse to make a deal with me, so now it's my turn. Aints the angel killer straightened his posture and stretched out his hands, as if to show he wasn't carrying anything. In the uncomfortable silence, his words felt infinitely loud. Here I go, this is a massacre. Nigun felt like he'd been stabbed in the back with an icicle and wanted to throw up. He felt something that, as a veteran slaughterer, he'd never felt before. They should retreat. Fighting with Aints without knowing for sure they could win was too dangerous, but he dismissed that gut feeling. They'd had Gazef cornered a moment ago. They couldn't just watch their prey get away now. Ignoring the warning from deep down, he shouted orders. All angels, attack. Now, all the flame archangels abruptly headed for Aints. You guys really like to play, huh? Albedo fall back, Nigun heard Aintz's awfully calm and collected voice say during the angel attack. Aintz didn't seem anxious about having no way to escape the angels bearing down on him from all directions. It seemed he was about to be skewered by countless swords, but before that could happen, he cast a spell negative burst. The earth rumbled below them. At once, a wave of black like the reverse of light with Aintz at its center swallowed up the area. The pulse took only a moment, and the results were instantly clear. This can't be. Somebody's voice was carried on the wind. The scene before them was unbelievable. There had been more than 40 angels. They were all obliterated by the wave of black light. It hadn't been counter magic to cancel the summons. The way the angels had been blown away by the black wave meant damage. He had wiped out the angels with damage-dealing magic. A violent chill went through Nigun's entire body. Gaze of Stronov flitted across his mind, along with the words he'd said. "Gar, the foolish one is you. There's someone in that village who is stronger than me. His power is so unfathomable I'm not sure all of you would be enough to take him. There's no way you'll be able to kill the villagers if he's protecting them." The words matched the scene before his eyes. That can't be possible. Nigun dismissed Gazev's words and frantically talked himself down. The strongest group he knew of was the Black Scripture. Their members could wipe out angels, so all he had to do was keep in mind that Aintz was at least as powerful as them. Even if he was Black Scripture level strong, with their numbers, they should be able to take him. But could a Black Scripture member wipe out an angel with just one spell? Nigun shook his head and cleared away his questions. He couldn't ask that now. If he realized the answer, he wouldn't have any way to proceed. So he put his hand on his breast pocket and took courage from the magic item inside. He was convinced that as long as he had that, they'd be all right. His men who didn't have that support were coping in a different way. Yerg, what the hell? He's a monster. Upon seeing that their angels were useless, they began shooting off any spell they felt they could rely on, shrieking all the while. Charm Person, Iron Hammer of Righteousness, Hold, Fire Rain, Emerald Sarcophagus, Shock Wave, Stalagmite Charge, Open Wounds, Poison, Fear, Curse, Blindness. They threw all kinds of spells Aintz's way. Through the hail of magic he kept his relaxed attitude. As I thought, these are all spells I know. Who taught them to you? Someone from the slain theocracy? Or someone else? There are just more and more things I want to ask. A being who can kill angels in one shot and can't be harmed with magic. Nigun felt like he was trapped in a nightmare. Eog. Driven mad by the ineffectiveness of their magic, one of his men took out a slingshot and, emitting a strange scream, launched a pellet. Nigun wondered what effect that could possibly have against a guy who was fine being run through with 2 angel swords, but he didn't stop him. The heavy iron pellet flew straight toward Aintz with enough destructive force to easily break a human's bones. Suddenly there was a sound like an explosion. It only took one moment. They were in the middle of a battle, so they hadn't looked away. Yet there was Albedo, who should have been behind Aintz, standing firmly in front of him. Did she teleport? In the place where she had been standing, some dirt was scuffed into a mound where she had kicked off. That strange sound had been the impact. Moving in a blur, she swung her bardage in a full arc. It left behind a neat, sickly green afterglow. A beat later, the man who had launched the pellet crumpled to the ground. No one could grasp what they had just seen. Their side attacked, so how come their man got taken out? Another subordinate ran over to confirm the man's status. He was dead, and cried. An iron pellet cracked his head open. What? An iron pellet? You mean the one he just launched? He shot it, so how did it kill him? A voice on the wind delivered the answer. Sorry about that. My subordinate here used a couple skills, missile parry and counter arrow, to reverse the attack. It seems like you had some defensive magic to block projectiles, but if the counterattack is stronger, the barrier would break, right? It's nothing to be surprised about. Having said that, Aintz ignored Nigun and the others and turned to Albedo. But Albedo, you know, a projectile that small wouldn't hurt me. You didn't need to, but Lord Aintz. To do battle with you, Supreme One, they must at least meet some minimum threshold of attack. That pellet, it was too great an insult. Haha, if we said that though, they'd be completely disqualified. Right, Principality Observation, engage. Responding to Nigun's hoarse voice, an angel that hadn't budged the whole time spread its wings. Principality Observation was a fully armored angel. In one hand it carried a mace with a large pummel. Its other hand was equipped with an oval shield. Its legs were completely hidden by long skirt like Hitatea. This angel was stronger than an archangel. The reason it hadn't moved until now was its special ability. Appropriate to its name, observation, it had the power to raise its teammates' defense just by watching. However, this ability would get cancelled if it moved, so having Principality Observation stand by was the wisest choice. The fact that Nigun had given it orders showed how shaken he was. He was grasping at straws. He didn't even care what could be done as long as something was. Albedo, fall back. The angel took its orders and flew immediately to Aints. Without losing any momentum, it began beating on him with its sparkling mace. Aints took the blows straight on with his gauntleted left hand, seeming put out by the hassle. These blows should have broken his arm, but they didn't seem to affect Aints.